episode 80 this week, where no one has gone before. So it's one of those strange season 1 episodes. It starts out with the Enterprise rendezvousing with another starship to pick up a scientist and his assistant. Scientist, not a member of Starfleet, because he's got no pips, no comm badge, but he's wearing a Starfleet uniform, so we presume he's in a civilian position for Starfleet, working for Starfleet but not an active member. His assistant just in civilian clothes, and he's some sort of alien that they never disclosed. Riker tells Picard before they bring this guy on, hey, his ideas are nonsense. They're just complete nonsense and garbage. And Picard says, well, Starfleet said they were fine. We have to take that at face value, don't we? And Riker's like, I guess, but it's nonsense. And Picard says, what's the worst that could happen? So Riker says, well, okay then. He and the chief engineer of the week and Troy go to bring this guy on board. The guy starts being really arrogant, says he's been on starships, so he knows every starship design and knows how to get from room to room. He doesn't need to be shown where the engine room is. Starts talking about how great his ideas are and he's a genius. Then Troy tells Riker, I sense he's arrogant. And Riker's like, wow, that's great insight, Troy, thanks for that. And she's like, no problem, I sense it. Now they get to the engine room and there's Wesley Crusher doing his homework. And the scientist flips out, like, what's that boy doing there? He's a boy. And they call Wesley a boy 187 times in the episode. Everyone just refers to him as that boy, or hey boy, or a boy, or attaboy, something. They do the experiment. Wesley's helping the assistant, and he sees the assistant kind of phasing in and out of existence. And he's like, huh, that's strange. And the Enterprise ends up hundreds of light years away, or thousands of light years, some ridiculous amount away from their last known position. And they're like, well, that was strange. Let's see if we can reverse that. And the scientist says, well, of course we can. I know what I'm doing. And he ends up not doing it. It was the assistant. And they end up at the edge of the universe. They're way off course. It's going to take them like 300 years to get back to the Federation space. Picard's for words. He's like, well, you did this, right? Can't you get us back? And the guy's like, well, of course, I'm the scientist. And Wesley Crusher's like, no, the assistant did it. And Riker's like, oh yeah, Wesley tried to tell me a bunch of times that something was wrong and the assistant was doing it, but I just kept saying, not now, boy. And so Picard's like, well, why didn't anyone tell me this? And Riker's like, oops, I guess I should have listened. Wesley's like, yeah, you should have. The assistant is phasing in and out still. He's near death. Beverly Crusher's like, yeah, I don't know what species he is or how to help him. Picard's like, well, then pump him full of drugs and get on with it. And Crusher's like, well, I don't know what drugs to give him. Picard's like, any drug will do. Just get him up. Get him talking. He's got to get us back. And then the crew starts seeing things. Worf sees his pet Targ. And Tashiar says, is that a kitty cat? And Worf's like, I guess so. And an orange pussycat appears on the bridge. And Tashiar is like, hey, it's my pussycat from my home planet. And then all of a sudden, she's like transported with the pussycat to her home planet. He's like, here comes the rape gangs. Get out of here, pussycat. And then she snaps out of it. And Geordi's like, are you okay? He's like, I was just on my home planet. And Geordi's like, well, that's crazy because you were standing here the whole time. But are you okay? He's like, yeah, I guess. The crew starts seeing things. They start imagining that they're other places doing ballet and nonsense. Picard sees his long dead either grandmother or mother. Talks to her. Riker's like, who are you talking to? He's like, can't you see I'm busy with my mother? And he's like, oops, no mother there. They figure out that it's the space they're in causing these hallucinations. The assistant snaps out of things long enough to say he thinks he can help get them back to where they started. And he has a private meeting with Picard. He's like, the boy is special. You gotta take care of the boy. The boy's a genius, and he's a one-in-a-lifetime prodigy. And Picard's like, who, the boy? Okay, sure, whatever, just get my ship back. And they run the experiment again. They all know that the scientist had nothing to do with anything. They keep him out of it, but the assistant's like, no, I need him to do something. He can look at a monitor. And they're like, well, okay. And the assistant ends up getting them back to where they started. And Data's like, oh yeah, here we are, just like my instrument showed all along. Everything was completely fine. It was not. It's not completely fine. They were on the edge of the universe having illusions, and like a traveler was going in and out of existence. But the traveler kind of disappeared on him. He'll come back later. He showed up a few more times in the series, but not for a while. And then they made Wesley an acting ensign for pointing out that the traveler was the guy responsible the whole time for all the incidents, and making him realize the scientist had absolutely nothing to do with any of it. Which is what Riker and the Chief Engineer of the Week had said at the beginning of the episode, but Picard didn't listen to any of his people. And that's pretty much episode 80.